Hey everyone, Ron over at BaseballSimResearch.com. Today we're going to cover the box score and the score sheet tabs. The box score is new in version 5, and the score sheet is new in version 6. We have added some stuff to the box score as well, so let's take a quick look. All right, this is the box score tab, and for the purpose of this video, we're going to pretend that we're playing a 1982 game in 2020, and it's the first half of the doubleheader. We played 7 innings and we're done. I've already compiled the stats. I'm going to get some warnings about recompiling the stats. We're going to ignore that anyway. So typical box score, right? You have the line score up here at the top. In the previous videos, I said don't touch anything that's not a formula. All of these up here, right? These team names are formulas. Don't touch them. These numbers up here are just numbers because they're written to by the app as a number. You can edit them. You shouldn't have to because the score should track correctly. Runs and hits are formulas. Errors, I'm probably going to change these to a formula maybe because I'm actually tracking errors in the stats sheets that we'll show you here in a couple more videos. So typical box score, right? Player, at-bats, runs, hits, RBI, walks, strikeouts. You can see all of these are pretty funky formulas, so don't touch it. Names here, formulas. But you will know here, notice here at bats, runs, hits, RBI, walks, strikeouts. These aren't formulas, and they're okay to change. This is kind of the unique feature of our box score versus a lot of other sims is you can make your box scores have whatever stats you want. So over here on the Game Stats Home and Game Stats Viz, which we're going to cover in another couple more videos, literally, like if we wanted caught stealing as a column, it'll put caught stealing in there. Grounded to double play, plate appearances. So if we, instead of wanted at-bats, we do a PA for plate appearances. Everything changes. At-bats, caught stealing, grounded to double play. I think it was GDP. Let's do doubles and triples. Boom. So you can make your box score look however you want. Most people will just have it with the typical column headings here now. Oops, strikeouts. Most people just leave it as is. You'll notice that we go from row 23 to 55. So there's support for 40 players. I think 40 players. I guess technically 39 players in a game. So, but don't mess with stuff there. Don't delete rows. Don't add rows. If you, I am I am using hard cell references instead of range names, which is what I should be using. But sometimes I don't do what I'm supposed to, as my wife will attest to. So don't add rows, don't delete rows. You can hide and unhide rows if you want. The app will come back here, and if we actually unhide all of these, you'll see that there's just a bunch of blank rows there. And those will fill in as needed as players are added to the game. It'll automatically unhide whatever rows it needs to. Same thing with the pitchers. 20 pitchers. No, this would be 40, not technically 39. That's 40. And 20 pitchers can appear in a game. So even in 2019 and 2020, you should be able to get all your pitchers in the box score. One of the things I added down here, doubles, triples, homers, a whole bunch of items listed. It doesn't list like this is the 5th of the season kind of stuff. It would involve some code looking at where your stats are and adding that, and it's not going to be released in 6.0. Maybe I'll do it someday. Don't know. But shows doubles, right? Eddie Murray hit one in the fourth inning off Dennis Leonard. Eddie Murray had a stolen base off the battery combination of Dennis Leonard and John Wathan. Caught stealing. Frank White was caught stealing by Dennis Martinez and Rick Dempsey. Errors, box, wild pitches, pass balls. So these will all show up here. And oddly enough, when a cell goes to multiple lines, Microsoft made this about as difficult to auto fit, because usually what you can do, right, is you come here and you select the line and you double click there when it's that arrow with the up and down arrow and the solid bar in the middle, and it'll automatically fit to height. So if it's like 5 rows long, it'll fit, but not with merge cells. So in case you're interested, to get the merge cells to auto fit to the correct height, you have to unmerge everything, make that first column the width of the entire merge cell range plus a fudge factor. Then you auto fit it. Then you change it back to the original column width, and then you merge all the cells again. So thanks, Microsoft. You made it really easy there. Before you compile stats, one of the things that the application will ask you if there have been errors in the game is, have you double checked the unearned runs? It does a pretty good job of unearned runs and earned runs. In my I guess it was a 2-week, 2 weeks on the schedule of 1979 National League games. It got better as I fixed a few things. Still not perfect. I'll guarantee you it will make unearned run mistakes. So when you're looking at stats, keep that in mind, especially league-wide stats, and go more off runs allowed per game or runs allowed per 9 than ERA, right? Because ERA may be off basically because of unearned runs. Unearned runs that you didn't catch during the season that were supposed to be unearned. So just keep that in mind. So box score, right? You basically don't have to touch anything. Like I said, you can change headers here, right? In fact, if we're going to change this one to walks, and of course it's still 2, so that was a bad example. Strikeouts, as you can see, it moves over. So you can change these headers. You have to have this WLS cell column in the location it's in. So don't change that one. Everything else, I'm pretty sure you can change. You'll want to mess with it yourself. Before we look at compiling stats and all the other features there, I just want to go to the score sheet. Here, one interesting thing is, because there's just so many relievers these days, a relief pitcher will only show up here in the score sheet in the batting area if they actually bat. So let's say this is the pitcher's spot, starting pitcher, he batted, twice, and then he was removed, and a reliever came in. The reliever is not going to be put in this spot until he actually bats. Odds are he's going to get pinch hit for, so the pinch hitter would appear here, and then the next pinch hitter here, etc. So only relief pitchers that bat will show up in the batting section. That's just to save space, because otherwise these 7 players would not be sufficient for a typical scenario, especially in 2019, 2020. Well, 2020 no, because pitchers aren't hitting. Just in case you're cringing at the fact that there's a DH in the National League now, get used to it. Trust me, it's not going away. This was Major League Baseball's way of getting another player onto the roster, and the Players Association is never going to give up that. So These are all formulas down here. Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything here as well, even though those are not formulas. These are hard-coded. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I ought to change that to be the column in the box score tab. So right now it's innings pitched, and I guess technically, since I just told you that you can change innings pitched, I ought to change it to a formula, and that way it's going to match up. So those will change the start and end. Don't mess with that. That's telling you what batters that pitcher faced. The W and the L actually get filled in when I put them in here. So if I take the loss away from Martinez for a second, you'll see it's just D Martinez. So before you compile your stats, you have to make sure you assign a win, a loss, and optionally a save. A save can be designated with an S in this column for the whoever, or an SV. Either one will work. And then when you compile the stats, they'll get tracked as well. Notes down here. This will list, I didn't do any substitutions for this demo game, but it will list all of the substitutions, so-and-so pinch hit or so-and-so replaced so-and-so, so-and-so relieved so-and-so, etc. So in case your player lines, so like if Jerry Martin left after his at-bat in the fourth inning, the score sheet, when it shows a sub, will actually show you this thick border on the right-hand side. And that's how you know that a player left. When a pitcher leaves, let's say after Aiken's single, the pitcher left, what the application will do, you're not going to have to do this manually. This happens automatically. So we'll show you an underline, thick underline, to show you that the pitcher left after that batter. So player subs, single thick line to the right or left. So for example, if a pinch hitter came in for McRae for this at bat, it will show on the left-hand side. So you would see a sign there, and then somebody's name in here. Let's say Kansas City. I don't know if Kirk Babak was on. Pretty sure he was on the team. And you'll see pinch hitter. Now, this fielding designation here is only the only the position information when a player entered the game. I'm not going in and adding the 57 positions that somebody played during the game. It's just their original one. They may move around. The box score will show. So if Eddie Murray goes from first to left field, it'll show 1B space LF, and it will show those positions. So again, for the score sheet, basically don't mess with anything. You shouldn't have to mess with anything. If after the game you want to add your own notes, or even during the game you want to add your own notes, just edit this field and add them there, and it'll keep accumulating. When you are exporting your stats, compiling your stats, when you start your game, if you did the copy lineups and start over here, if you chose copy lineups and start game, in other words, this is an as played because we're loading as played lineups, versus start game, which is what you do after if you're loading a manual game, once you get your lineups all set, etc. If you chose copy lineups and start game, this is an as played option will automatically click on. If you are choosing your own lineups, it's going to prompt you when you start the game for a date. And that date is going to get put in here. The date of the game, that is used in exporting all of these to files in a location. So for example, I told the application that I want all of my files here to go in D, on my D drive in the data folder under NPNG. If that path doesn't exist, it will create it. And the easiest way to get that in here is to go to whatever folder it is you want it to be stored in, and then come in here and change it. Just remember, pretty sure the code adds a / anyway to it, but you can change that. So if I wanted Let's say I wanted this. Let's go ahead and test this live because, nothing bad ever happens in a demo, right? Let's say I want the play-by-play in that folder. I want the score sheet in this folder. And I'm going to get really daring with the box score, and I'm not going to put the backslash. And we're all going to find out if my code sucks or if it's decent. It's probably going to suck if I had to bet, but that's beside the point. All right, so you can export stats when I'm compiling stats, right? I tell it whether it's an as-played game or not. That's only really needed if I decide to export anything. And when I compile the stats, it'll export the stats to a CSV, common delimited file. It'll export the play-by-play tab, export the play-by-play to a PDF, export the score sheet to a PDF, and export the box score to a PDF. So in case, you want to go back and look at anything ever, it will automatically have all that for you. The export stats to CSV. That, right now, I don't have an import option. Similar to how other applications allow you to rebuild a season, basically. I will have an import function for the stats, replay stats. In case you goof up your replay stats, you'll be able to re-import all of your games as long as you don't duplicate your games in your import folder, and everything should work. So let's go ahead and test it out here. When you're compiling stats, and it looks like the season has been compiled from this game already, add stats anyway. So I've already, like I said, I've already compiled these stats into a spreadsheet, and I was just messing with it anyway. So it's going to warn me a number of times. Yeah, really, no, I want to compile the stats. And let's, even though this is a 1982 American League game, let's just forget for a minute that I'm, throwing it into a file called 1979 National League Replay Stats. Don't worry about that. Compile the stats into that particular file, yes. And it's creating the PBP folder. It's creating the score sheet folder. Import completed. So, yay, it only did 2 of them instead. I think I've got to change that. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yep. All right, need to update my code. Don't worry about it. It'll work when we go live. So what it does is it names it by the game name, and it gives you a date time in the file just to make sure it's unique. So here's the score sheet in PDF format. Boom. Here's the box score in PDF format. Boom. And here's the play-by-play in PDF format. Boom. And the stats are in CSV. Okay, if you open that directly into Excel, that's what it looks like. If I right-click, say Edit with Notepad++, it's just if you're familiar with comma delimited, you can see it's comma delimited, and it is quote comma delimited as well. So that takes care of that. If we open up the replay stats, even though it says 1979, this is from the 1982 game. You can see all the stats in here compiled. I've been replaying the same game over and over, so Dennis Martinez has all 4 games started. Yay. Unlike version 5, box and wild pitches actually will accumulate now. I had the columns in there, and the stats were never accumulating, so now they do. I also added 2 columns, pass balls and errors, and added those in as well. So it will compile the stats. This is your stats stuff. We're going to cover this stats application in future videos. You are able to add a standing. There'll be a standings tab, a league leaders tab, team stats tab, etc. So cool thing. I don't want to say the cool thing. I don't want to ruin all the surprise for you. All right, so that is the score sheet, the box score. You can change some of these headers. I made a few notes for things that I want to fix before we go live. Oh, if it's not an as played, let's say that we're doing our own replay, not with as played lineups, and we still want to export all these things. I'm going to do the compile stats again. Put the same stats right back in the same file, which is a no-no. You don't want to do that because now I've duplicated stats. But this is only for demo purposes. So now these files are named a little bit differently. Instead of using the beginning of this, you see 1982-0405 KCAAL at BALAL. That gets pulled from this cell right here. It changes the parentheses to hyphens and spaces to hyphens. And so that file name gets created from that. Since we don't technically have that when we're not doing an as played, it uses J for American League, S for National League. So it combines these two cells into that. And then you have, Kansas City, Baltimore. There's the stats. There's the play-by-play. So it will put, J Kansas City, score sheet. Obviously, it's the same data, right? It just has a different file name if you're not doing it as played because it can't use the abbreviations because they're not known. You can't use that same column. So that's it for box score and score sheet. Website for Bill Middleton's National Pastime Next Generation Plus is ntlpt.com. My website, baseballsimresearch.com. Lots of stuff there for any games. Replay baseball, inside pitch, payoff pitch, obviously national pastime, any sim, status pro, any of them that you use, APA, Skeetersoft, whatever. All of those useful information for doing your replays. That's it for now, and have some more videos.